Alright guys, welcome. In this video, I want to go over some general tips for how to take a good high quality screenshot. I will share reshade settings with you and talk about where to put those in your game files, but ultimately I've spent a lot of time over the past year playing bikes, kind of looking up to people who take good screenshots, learning from them and figuring out ways that I can kind of apply that to my own screenshots, and it's one of my favorite pastime activities in this game. So I'm just going to jump right in with a couple of tips, starting with tip number one. Make sure that you pick a track that has good lighting. There are a lot of tracks in this game that do have good lighting. There are a lot of tracks that have poor lighting, and there are some tracks that have amazing lighting. You can also play around with the weather conditions if you want to do clear, cloudy, rainy. If you want that kind of, MXON vibe like JV made, where it's thundering and raining and muddy, you can pick a track like that. It all just depends on what it is that you're actually looking for. In my opinion, the best track in the game for the skybox and the lighting to just focus on the rider and not care about what's in the background is Paletta V2. That track has such beautiful lighting. Every color in your kit will just absolutely pop, and you won't have to worry about anything like obstructing in the background if you just want a clean image of the bike and of the rider. My second favorite track in general, maybe my number one actually, is Iron Man, because it also has amazing lighting. It's a little bit more dull than Paletta, but still very crisp is how I would call it. And the background scenery is nice. Washington is also another good track like this. The shadows on that track make for a good one. And then lastly, another one of my favorites is MXGP of Russia. It just gives that general pro-national vibe. The banners, the spectators, the fact that there are actually like really good detailed ruts that you can hit, jumps that you can hit, just whatever you want to do. So that's definitely tip number one, is make sure that you are choosing tracks with good lighting. Alright, the next thing I want to talk about is taking close-ups. So I think this is probably the most important tip that I could possibly give. I see a lot of screenshots that are captured where the outside edges of the frame are mainly filled with like void or just certain objects on the track that don't really draw attention, like the viewer's attention to the rider and bike model. So that's, again, the most important tip that I can give, is make sure that you are getting close-ups, and I will give you some examples of this here in just a minute on the video. But even if your reshade settings are good, the amount of zoom that you have or don't have in the photo and the position of the camera can really make or break it. Tip number three is gear quality. Gear quality can absolutely play a part in the quality of your screenshot, whether you realize it or not. Most gear is made of really good quality. In fact, earlier today I did some testing before I made this video by downloading just random gear sets off of MXB mods, and most of the people who are uploading understand how to do proper norms on the gear. They know how to do proper reflections. But if you're dealing with somebody who might not know how to, or if you don't know how to, or if the gear you're running wasn't made with the best looking norms, then that can really impact your screenshot negatively. So not all gear is made equally, but most gear is good quality, so just keep that in mind. Helmets are also a big difference depending on the model, depending on the paint, but there are a lot of good helmets out there as well. The other thing is, tip number four is graphics. Just make sure you're turning them all the way up for your screenshots. There's really no need not to. You don't need good FPS whenever you're just going for a still frame image. You shouldn't be getting screenshots in the middle of a race. All of this should pretty much be done in testing, so there really is no reason to not turn your graphics all the way up. And the final tip that I have is posing. Poses. Make sure that you're taking your time and having fun with it. To me, that's the funnest part about taking screenshots, is getting the right poses, playing around with different ways that you can manipulate the rider model. Hit jumps while you're sitting, hit jumps while you're standing, and never sit down. Throw in some leaning to the left, leaning to the right, leaning forward. Even look left or look behind you, look right. Just play around with all the different options that you have in this game to manipulate the rider model and figure out the coolest screenshots that you can come up with. Do the craziest shit you can think of. You don't have to land that oppo for a screenshot. You just have to get at least one cool pose of it. You don't have to make it out the other side of that corner alive. You just have to rail it and get that 1/6 shot of you with your foot out or whatever it is that you're looking for. So just go crazy with it. Have fun. So those are my 5 tips. I would say tracks with good lighting, making sure that you're getting close-ups, making sure that your gear is of good quality, turning your graphics all the way up, and really taking your time and playing around with the poses. I'll put those in the description below as well, just so you have them there as a general reminder. But okay, let's move on to talk about the actual reshade settings. Alright, so once you are in bikes and you have your reshade menu open, it should look something like this. Now, if you have put the reshade file that I've uploaded to MediaFire in the right spot, you should notice at the top of the reshade menu across a long horizontal bar will be an area that you can drop down and explore the MX Bikes folder. So that way you can actually select the reshade file. And once you do that, also a big shout out to Boardman, who was the person who originally made this reshade file. There are a couple of tweaks that I ended up making here, but I think for the most part it's pretty close to what Boardman started with. But nevertheless, once you have hit that drop down and you have selected the file from your MX Bikes folder, all of these pre-selected boxes should already be checked. And if necessary, you can pause the video as we go through here to make sure that on your end everything is properly selected. There's really not that much that is chosen, but yeah, nevertheless, just make sure that everything lines up one-to-one. Alright, so we're going to do a live example here. We'll do it here on Washington. We are going to come over the top of Horsepower Hill and see what kind of good shots we can get. I'm going to lean left with the bike, stay standing as I come over, and I'm going to use the ability to look in the air. So we'll get it slowed down as we come over the top. Rider looks down. So, not a bad pose. You're hanging off the bike is sailing where it needs to go, your rider is looking down. You can get a cool screenshot maybe if you actually want to like look at the camera. Maybe choosing to look back would have been the better option there. But still, just again, one of my tips was poses, and we're just kind of playing around with it. Getting the right angle of the photo is obviously very important. You know, this angle doesn't show us much. This angle is not terrible, but again, trying to implement the rule of close-ups. You want as much in that photo as you can get. Obviously, we're not looking at the camera, but we don't need to be. The shot still looks cool. And when we apply our reshade settings, this is what we get. You can obviously choose what kind of photo that you want to take. You can choose to kind of zoom in, crop some of this other stuff out. Really, you know, in this example, I think I would probably want the rider to be the main focus of the image. So that's where I'm going to put my time and effort here. That's where I'm going to focus the center of the screen. I don't need the whole bike in the image. Your mind completes the rest of the bike. So you don't have to know, or you don't have to see that there's a front fender hanging off the edge of the screen. You don't have to see the rear fender of the bike. You know that stuff exists. What we're doing here is trying to showcase something with a screenshot. I'm trying to showcase the kit, the pose, everything. So that, I think, would be a good screenshot. Now, if you did want the full bike to be in there, you could hit it from this angle and you could zoom in. I think that's also a pretty clean shot. So it really just depends on, again, what it is that you want out of the image. Also, keep in mind, we're playing with the FOV of the camera, zooming in and zooming out. If I want the background to be as blurry as possible, then I want to be as close to the rider as possible with the FOV zoomed all the way out. That's how you achieve that effect where everything in the background is blurry. If I want some of the things in the background to be, you know, seen in the image, then I'm going to back out and I'm going to zoom in. That's how you can see the trees and the leaves a whole lot better. So again, just play around with it and figure out what it is that you want. This time, instead of looking behind us or looking down, we're just going to stay looking straight, but we're still going to try to hit a sideways, we're just going to try to turn it sideways here. Not sure how that'll turn out. But again, I stay standing on the bike because the feet never leave the pegs. You know that if you hit this jump sitting and you reach this point where you're curving the bike off the face to try to do a whip, your left leg is going to stick off of the peg, which can impact the look of the screenshot. If you stay standing, your feet will never leave the peg. So, not a huge fan of how that one turned out. I would probably redo it, but we can still get a clean shot from it. So let's hop on our reshade settings here, and let's see what we can work with. Pretty much a direct replica of a screenshot that I've already taken that is was posted earlier in this video. But yeah, this is just your typical, I guess, pose. Rider's hitting the jump, has a little bit of style. You know, he's not stiff as a board, but he's looking forward towards where the bike is going, and the bike is underneath him. Another showcase of the rider model and the helmet. We can change positions here and kind of hit it from this angle, which I think is also really clean. Display a little bit more of the bike and get a good, a good sense of everything that's going on. If I were to hit the jump a little better, then this angle might kind of show how far off the ground we were. But nevertheless, always up to you as to what you want. All right, let's slow it down a little bit. Boom, right there. Nothing much, just a little bit of style as we come into the roller section here. Rider's leaning over the bars. I'm leaning to the left, ready to kind of crank the bike back into the angle that I need it to be at. Another way to get kind of good angles here on everything. This image right here would be specifically if I wanted to showcase the boots, the gear, the helmet, and the bike all in one. Classic image for me right here, this angle, whether it's a wheelie on the ground or a jump in the air. So, and of course, if I wanted the background to be blurrier, then I could zoom it in, or I could push the camera closer in and zoom the FOV out. So I think that is a pretty clean shot right there. A couple different ways that you can kind of tweak it and play with the angle. You could also get like a further down range view here where you're pulled out more with the camera and you're zoomed in, and you can see the rider and the bike as well as what it is that they're aiming for. You can see the rollers on the track and where I'm going. But again, just as a general reminder in terms of close-ups, when I hit this angle right here, there's really no excess in the image. The absolute unmistakable, unavoidable focus point of this image is the rider and the bike. I'm not trying to get an angle on it from back here like this. Even though with Reshade it's a pretty photo, it's just not as impactful as getting up here with it and forcing your attention to the only thing that I want you to care about when you see this photo. In terms of like artistic kind of integrity or just like different ways to do things, if I wanted to make it so that the track down lane here was more visible and you had a better feel for what I was doing and where I was going and trying to paint like a different picture for you, then I would actually move the rider to the left side of the screen so that you can still see the helmet, the gear, the bike, the boots, but you can also see the track on the right hand side of the screen. So again, it just really depends on the picture that you are trying to paint. So all in all, guys, I hope that this has been helpful for some people who might be trying to level up their screenshot game. It's probably, again, just one of my favorite pastimes in MX bikes is taking clean shots. You can use them for desktop backgrounds. You can enter into screenshot of the week competitions, or you can just share them with your friends or in Discords. But nevertheless, this is the kind of stuff that I will always use, as well as streams and videos on YouTube to come back in the future, years from now, and just take a look back at my time in this game. Gear and bike decals and graphics are always like such a big deal to me. I love, kind of detailing and critiquing the way that I look on the track. So having that kind of that snapshot of that moment in time when I can look back, a few years from now and say, you remember those Foster A-Stars kits, dude? They were clean, and have some really, really high quality images of it. So anyways, guys, again, download the Reshade file in the description below. Put it in the directory where I have linked as well, or I've written it out where it needs to go. It does not go with your other mods, so don't try to put this in the MX Bikes folder under your documents. You're going to need to go into your C drive here. But then once you have it in there, open up MX Bikes, make sure everything lines out one-to-one, and have some fun, man. Hey, if you guys do take good screenshots and you're trying to play around with this setting, do me a favor, upload them to the internet somehow, some kind of file sharing website or image hosting website, and link them in the comments below, because I would love to see what you're able to create, especially with any tips I might have been able to provide. So, all right, guys, that's it. Take it easy.